Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Eric Sandrud. I'm the project lead of VistaHops.com. Today, in our series of interviews with Vista Hops folks, we're excited to welcome the creator of Vista himself, USDA hop breeder extraordinaire. You may not know him, but you know his hops, Dr. John Henning. Welcome, John. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot, Eric, for having me on this.
Well, please tell us more about your work creating Vista Hops.
Okay, so the just some background history. Some of you may not realize that USDA has been in the hop breeding industry since about 1930, and so it was building up all the way up into the 50s when they started making some serious crosses, and some of the things that came out of there is Cascade and Nugget and Willamette and a number of the varieties that we're familiar with from older days that were released by the USDA, developed and released by USDA. I came on board in 1996 and took over, and strong learning curve to deal with breeding with hops. It's a unique crop and actually a very fun crop to breed with. And so, the crosses that I made took a little while to start building up and getting out there into the public. And right now we're finally seeing some of the results of that, such as Triumph, which released the year before last. And that was a cross I made in the year 2000. So it shows you how long it takes to really build up with the public line. Um, and then in the year 2006, I made the crosses uh, from which that Vista as well as Triple Pearl came from. And so this was made onto a cross that was what we call a tetraploid female. Normally, hops have two sets of chromosomes. This particular female had four sets. And so when you cross that four sets of chromosome with a regular male, and you end up with what's called a triploid or a seedless and sterile line. Still produces hop cones, but it doesn't produce seed. And so that cross was made in 2006. We planted it out. I evaluated it through several years, and it was obvious this particular line was a real winner because it was super high yielding, just seemed to kind of grow through everything that you could throw at it, like downy mildew and powdery mildew and things like that, and still produce a pretty good yield out of it. Um, and so it was advanced through the lines. I actually kept the original mother plant 4074 just sitting out in a field. Um, One that we didn't water, we didn't maintain or anything. And I don't know why I did it, but I did. And for about 4 years, didn't do anything for this plant. It was still living and thriving after 4 years of never getting any water or anything like that. And I thought, wow, I wonder if this thing has drought resistance. And then 2015 hit up in Washington, and it was located on a farm up there in call it Brulot's farm. They were growing it out, and I talked to Ron, and he came out and showed me where it was in the field, and it was growing perfectly. Like there was no heat issues whatsoever. Everything else surrounding it was dying or dying off. And so at that point, I thought, wow, this thing is really special. It's got some drought resistance, even possibly, and drought and heat tolerance. So I sent it out to a number of different states, part of it being Vermont, where University of Vermont looked at it in their organic studies, and it did phenomenal there. It was actually one of the top yielding lines up in Vermont. Sent it out to various places in the Midwest and, of course, up in Washington and Oregon. Um, and California too, Sierra Nevada had a little stint while they were looking at it as an organic line. Everywhere it went, it grew well. It did fantastic. And the aroma from it was excellent. The brewing trials that came out of it were all extremely positive, mostly gearing towards the IPA pale ale style. Although recently people have told me it works well with the lager. So great. But I really love Vista. Um, Several places out in the field, it grows so big and bushy. When you're out in the field, a lot of times when we're harvesting, we would actually sit in the shade of this plant because it was so nice and bushy. So we called it the shade plant. But yeah, so that's sort of some of the background of it and little things that people really don't know about it.
I appreciate you sharing all of your views into the history of Vista are super fascinating. What now looking closer to its release, um, what was that process like to go from 074 to being named as Vista? And was there anything that you'll experiment with doing a little differently this time around compared to past public hop releases?
So yeah, so 074 was being grown in what we call elite trials by the Hop Research Council, and um, in that case, they're growing it on about 2 acres. And in this, for this particular variety, it was 2 acres here in Oregon and 2 acres up in Washington. Um, and in those trials, the yields were extremely, good for a trial. I mean, Washington was over 3,000 pounds per acre. Oregon was a little bit lower. Um, just some of the issues were with a field that they was growing on. But regardless of that fact, um, Hop Research Council spent a lot of time marketing and going out and saying, "Hey, we have this line. Would you like to try it in your beers?" And so uh, they were actively going out there and generating interest, and I know some other people were as well, um, just really interested in trying to get and promote public lines. So a number of brewers have tried it, they've liked it, um, and now I think the latest we heard is that 60 acres has been planted with an additional 40 acres planned for, I believe, the Midwest. I thought that's the information that I was provided. So we're possibly looking at about 100 acres of it available. So brewers should be able to get what they want for it. So
Well, and you brought that up. That's about I think what I've heard is 60 to 100 in the PNW and 40 or so spread around kind of the rest of the continental United States, if you will. And
yeah,
this is something that I'm curious. It feels to me like Vista may be the most widely geographically grown cultivar upon release, and certainly with the most individual farms growing Vista at its release point. It feels like it's the most popular new hop by number of farmers, and I'm just curious if that's a sense that you have as well, having seen other releases.
certainly from the public line, yeah. Um, you were the one I think in the point that this out about the um, I can't remember, was it Brew Mag or whatever that listed the top 5 most exciting hop varieties for the upcoming year, and
I believe this was a
uh,
hop culture article.
hop culture, yeah, yeah, and so getting that sort of excitement coming out, I haven't seen that for other varieties that are public. So public lines usually take a long time to really gain traction. I mean, Cashmere was released, gosh, probably more than 10 years ago, and it just sat there and did nothing. And now, brewers can't get enough of it.
Exactly.
So, it one of the differences between the public and the private lines are the public line doesn't have a marketing branch. It's going out actively and visiting brewers and saying, here, you need to try this, and we'll give you 20 pounds right here on the spot if you'll do this. So I feel like Vista's maybe a little change in that respect. Certainly the Vista Hop, or excuse me, Vista Hop website you've generated has some real excitement that I'm hearing, and people asking me, "Hey, what's all this about?" And so yeah, I think it's a little different.
So let's talk about Vista and using Vista then. So you're very intimately aware with how it smells, kind of on the field side and the farm side, if you will. But for all the brewers watching, I know word's getting out there. People say, "Oh, it's melon or passion fruit or guava or pear or peach." What experience do you have with brewed beers of Vista, and what sort of tips or tricks or experiences can you share with Vista in a brewed environment for brewers who might be watching?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely there's a real strong sense of melon and tropical fruit flavor, and then the stone fruits like your pears and apricots. That not so much the apricot, but definitely the pear that comes out at the end on that flavor profile. Um, it's a 12% alpha, so it's got a little bang to it. So um, if you certainly want to get something that's a little bit more bitter, then that's an excellent option. Um, but I think is just as a from what I'm also hearing is that it seems to play well with the other hops. So um, if you've got a Citra that you really want to promote, this Vista particularly plays well with Citra and the other hops as well. It doesn't seem to take away any of the benefits of that other hop, and it doesn't override them. So it's kind of nice, I think, in that respect. It gives brewers options.
That's a lot of what I've heard as well, that it's a great partner hop. It's a
Yeah,
great hop to go in there and maybe bring a new flavor or aroma to mix it up a little bit in your IPA
yeah,
program.
yeah,
So brewers might be watching, but also growers. And as the father of Vista, we talked about a little bit about your experiences, kind of watching it grow out in the trial fields. In a few short sentences, could you describe kind of the main benefits or the main pitch of why, if I'm a hop grower, why I should consider growing Vista?
sure. Um, I will say that Vista grows like a weed. It's incredibly vigorous. It's easy to propagate, so there's not a lot of issues in propagation. It is a triploid, so it's going to be a seedless hop. If you live near any males, you don't have to worry about that. Um, the other aspect of it, it's got a really cool cone, the hop cone. It's a big, long cone. Um, some of the issues that you can have is that it can get downy mildew, so you'd want to spray for it. However, one of the things that I've always noted about it, it just seems to grow through it. Yeah, it might get hit early on, but once things heat up, it just takes off and forgets that it even had downy mildew. So it's pretty cool in that respect. Um, Other sort of aspects of it, as I mentioned, it's an extremely vigorous hop. You can probably get away with stringing with more than 3 binds per string, just simply because it is so vigorous. Uh, think of some other things. Heat is not an issue for it. It does seem to do well in both high heat and low heat. I mean, the Midwest and Vermont, it grew phenomenally. Uh, all the way down into Northern California and the heat that they have down there, it did great there as well. So I think if you're a grower, it's one of those things. I mean, if you want to be get into hop growing for the first time, that might be a great hop to start with. I mean, easy to work with.
That was certainly our experience when we were trialing it back in the late 2010s.
Hmm.
Vista was a incredible performer and certainly stood out for the size of its cones. That's something that is a hallmark of the variety that I hope more and more people get to enjoy, especially farmers. I mean, these are those big cone picks that you see during harvest season every year on
Yeah,
social media. You'll get those from Vista.
it's a pretty plant with all that the big cones sitting on it. So
Absolutely. Well, my last question for every guest is to share, for you, why or what makes the public hop program important for the brewing industry and the hop industry.
now the public hop program offers growers, if you will, sort of I want to call it freedom. Um, Public hop varieties can be grown by anyone. There's no one who's saying, "Hey, you can't grow this." If you have a farm and you want to grow it, and you have a way to market it, if you have a brewery that you'd like to work with, no one's going to tell you, "Well, you can't do that." So that's one of the real bonuses, I think, of the public program. It's a it's a freedom program that's available for everyone. Um, the other aspect of it is that people's tax dollars are paying for this program, and so you know maybe go out and get the benefit of the money that you've contributed towards this program. And I think the other thing that it's important for all of the growers and brewers who may not know this, but all of the private breeding companies got their start from the public program. If you look at all of their pedigrees of any variety that they have, they all derive from what the public program developed. So either a male that the program made or females that they made. And we've shared this germplasm with people and freely. And so it helped develop that. And so the public program also helped another industry, the hop breeding industry, to get its start and take off. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for or what.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Well, now we're really here at the end. Is there a spot that people who are listening can follow your work or the work of the hop breeding program, USDA hop breeding program on the internet?
Uh, um, Not yet. We're working on that. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Well, we'll all be
US
waiting on.
Yeah, USDA has uh, there's ways of doing it, and I just need to really get that moving forward. So it's on me.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, John. I thank you for joining us, and thank you for everyone listening and watching for joining us. You can give us a comment or a share if you like this content. I'd appreciate it. And again, I'm not the best interviewer, but I always look forward to getting better. So if you have tips or whatever, let me know in the comments. Appreciate that. And once again, thank you, John, so much for your time visiting with us today about Vista.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everyone, for listening.